The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird, weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time. Cast a guy in the movie,
Right.
Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
What interests me here is she's not really saying anything that Disney hasn't themselves been clearly saying with their movies. Snow White's a pretty popular source of mockery. The same for films like Sleeping Beauty. Now, this isn't me coming down on these films as deeply immoral, problematic, etc. It's just saying Disney is clearly quite keen on making fun of them themselves. They don't need the actress to do it.
Uh-oh.
Pip!
Hang on, hang on, honey. I'm gonna.
Oh my gosh. It's you,
Yes, it's me. And you are?
Giselle.
Oh, Giselle! We shall be married in the morning. You're the fairest maid I've ever met. You were made.
To finish your duet.
Now, this movie, I believe, came out in 2008, and it's making fun of films from like the late 50s. Basically, Disney has been sort of apologising for itself for a long, long time.
Longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
Not going to be
yeah.
saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
What amuses me is she's actually completely wrong here, because the prince doesn't even save Snow White. He like looks at her near the start, and then later on he just turns up and kisses her, and then they go off together and, like, I don't know, get married, have sex, whatever. It's a children's movie from the 30s. You know, what did you expect the plot to be? So of course it's got to be completely changed. Once again, what would you expect? Have you been paying attention to anything which is still about from that era? You know, a few things remain similar. Most things that get brought back, particularly the sort of stuff aimed at a general family audience, get radically redesigned. This is the nature of the mega franchise. See, because certain brands just have a lot of stay in people's minds, we're seeing a lot of movies which don't necessarily need the brand they have, but are ultimately made because the brand is a safety net. You think Joker necessarily needed to be about the Joker? Even the director correctly pointed out that had the movie just been named something like Arthur, it would have probably struggled to get a cinematic release, let alone be a huge hit. Barbie, maybe it requires Barbie as a brand, maybe that makes it stronger, but be real, if it was just some satirical movie about dolls and lacked the official Barbie branding, that film would probably be, I don't know, maybe straight to DVD, and wait, that doesn't exist. I mean straight to streaming. Where this starts to get more cultural related is the simple fact that by updating these brands to have more wide appeal, they end up inevitably upsetting fans of the original. Now, Barbie fans, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming fans of the actual Barbie, like TV shows and movies that existed before the Barbie movie everyone knows and saw, you know, I'm assuming they ain't freaking out and posting massive 10-hour like screeds on YouTube about how it ruined the franchise and betrayed everything about it, because, you know, I'm assuming it's, you know, mostly young girls. I don't know, maybe we can find a gay man to produce a 10-hour Barbie deconstruction on how it destroyed his childhood or something. Part of why I'm not a big fan of the idea of a strict canon is simply that to me it feels very messy and kind of dishonest. People might be upset at me saying this, but when I watch something like Andor, which personally I felt was grossly overrated, and I can't help but feel mostly comes down to Star Wars fans finally having a Star Wars mainstream product which they can point at and go, see, it's clearly for grown-ups, it's clearly not for children, this one, which they really couldn't before this. I just end up thinking, man, this is not what Star Wars originally was, because the original Star Wars was a very black and white, morally simplistic and straightforward children's movie. Feel free to complain in the comments. Hal, this was such an obvious thing that when I was a young child, comedies were making fun of Star Wars fans for it.
Are so blind. You so do not understand. You weren't there at the beginning. You don't know how good it was, how important. This is it for you, this jumped up firework display of a toy advert. People like you make me sick. What's wrong with you? Now, I don't care if you've saved up all your 50p's, okay? Take your pocket money and get out! What a prick.
Believe it or not, there are still people who aren't aware that the Star Wars prequels were probably the earliest example of a massive fan backlash. I don't know what would have happened had the internet been at the state it is now. Probably a mass shooting, I'd guess.
The Phantom Menace was 18 months ago, Tim.
I know, Bilbo. Okay, it still hurts. You know, that kid wanted a Jar Jar doll.
Kids like Jar Jar.
Why?
What about the Ewoks? Hey? They were rubbish. You don't complain about them.
Yeah, but Jar Jar Binks makes the Ewoks look like fucking Shaft.
I've had enough, Tim.
But Bilbo...
Look, I know how you feel, right? I really do. But this can't go on.
What are you trying to say, Bilbo?
I'm gonna have to let you go.
Phew! I thought you were going to fire me then. I was like, phew! Look at that.
But seriously, consider the fact that for a lot of people still living, this is what Batman and the Joker are.
Hello, kiddies. Meet the Joker. No hard feelings. Corny, aren't I?
Joker, what are you doing here?
Oh, just passing by. I heard my name, and I couldn't resist shooting a jolly jet through the tiny perforation in that screen.
Just passing by, huh? To do what?
Gimmick another innocent vending machine.
Oh, there must be bats in your belfry, Batman. Has anyone found fingerprints or other evidence?
You're too smart for that, Joker.
Hey, Batman, nab him anyway. Loitering on school property.
Right. $5,000 fine and 5 years imprisonment.
Ah, no. Wrong, kiddies. Look up the statute. In Gotham City, the crime of loitering requires the loiterer to remain in the same spot for over 2 minutes.
You jailhouse lawyer?
The tricky trickster, he's outwitting us.
Oh, dear me. The court jester must run just in time. Well, goodbye, kiddies. And remember, I was here, huh?
This isn't some big appeal to say, hey, you have to like what's new. Just that something being seen as a betrayal of what it originally was isn't some shock, it's the norm. When something gets brought forward in time, it inevitably is going to be massively altered to appeal to its newer, more mainstream target market, as opposed to people who are still really into that old thing from the 30s, or the 60s, or the 50s, or even the 2000s. Hal, I'm not trying to say this as like some insult. There's plenty of examples of things I used to like which I just don't as much anymore because they've changed. I used to be a fan of the original first 2 Saints Row games. Then the third came along and turned it all into the equivalent of one of those bad parody movies. I cannot at all get behind the people who see the newest one as a betrayal, because as far as I'm concerned it already happened with the third. I kind of like those original 2. First had a lot of that unironic misogyny and gangster rap attitude from the stuff it was inspired by, basically.
Where now?
The penthouse.
I'm gonna skull fuck that bitch.
Hope you don't mind hepatitis.
What?
And I'm not criticising people who like that, because to me that was part of the entertainment value of something like it. It doesn't necessarily have to represent my values. I'm just saying it was part of the appeal.
Some guys just never get enough of me.
I've had more than my fill, bitch.
It's over, girl. You're not gonna be able to fuck your way out of this one.
That's cute, sweetie. That's just precious.
Please. Please don't.
Oh, Tanya, do yourself a favor and die with some dignity.
That sucks for your car. We better get out of here. The cops will be here soon. You coming, King?
All right, let's go.
Personally, I think the anti-woke tend to be inherently very dishonest when they talk about why they don't like newer stuff. Try and find someone complaining about forced political messages and blah 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 who actually admit that that was part of the appeal of the original Saints Row. Seriously, bitches, I complained when the third hit. You guys are way behind if you're just whining about Saints Row 5. I mean, James Bond isn't even really true to James Bond. The Connery movies, yeah, Connery was unironically fairly chauvinistic. Then we move along to George Lazenby, who basically does the same sort of style of movie, but plays a gentler, sort of nicer version of the character. Move forward to Roger Moore, now it's outright comedic and a borderline farce. Go to Dalton and they're making it gritty again. Move forward to Pierce Brosnan, now it's slightly more self-aware but not quite Roger Moore levels comedic. And we finally get to Daniel Craig, and now it's kind of going gritty but trying to kind of explore the series' history and make explanations for the problematic aspects of the character or whatever. The point is, this stuff is always going to be warped by time. So I guess now we get to bring back Rachel Ziegler, because George Lazenby was not a fan of Bond by all accounts. He made a bunch of fairly negative comments about the character, calling him a brute. He called it fantasy. He didn't seem to be a fan. And after his first movie, he quit the role, and many people called him incredibly ungrateful, particularly because he came from a background where he was just a model, not an actor, and got the fairly amazing chance to most people to play James Bond, something a ton of people would probably start chopping off their limbs to do. So I understand the anger at someone like Rachel Ziegler simply because they feel someone should be like a perfect PR model when talking about something a lot of people would love to do, a position a lot of people would love to be in. I mean, I understand it. A lot of us are worrying about when our next paycheck's going to come up, worried about work, worried about how long it's been since we last had sex, worried about our diet, worried whether we have some form of cancer potentially. There's a million things we're worried about. We're looking at statistics online about life expectancy, and we're a lot of us just are not happy with our lives. So I can understand the rage when some young woman comes up and seems to be ungrateful for the opportunity she's gotten. But my point is, who cares? It doesn't really matter about the movie. Nothing about Rachel Ziegler is particularly bad, to be honest. She said a lot of stuff which just seems quite honest, really. Like, yes, Snow White is a pretty out-of-date story. Yes, of course it's going to be completely remade. Yes, it's going to have very little to do with the original. But so what? She's simply saying what is honestly the truth. And yeah, I cannot see the hate for her. There are tons of terrible people in the world. I don't think an actress who's simply guilty of maybe not being the perfect model of appreciation we maybe would like isn't the worst thing. So next time I'm going to just maybe talk a bit more about the culture war stuff and try and really expand on that, because I think there's a lot to say on why we're in this whole mess.
It's important. Are we teaching them the masculine version of Thundercats? Or are we showing them the CalArts soy-based pussy version of Thundercats? Are we mocking masculinity, or are we cherishing it? We're making it look cool. We're giving these boys something to aspire to. That's what all of this stuff means. These are the things that actually shape our ideas of what it means to be a man. And if these social justice warriors, these soy boys, can get in there and they can monkey with it and they can change it and they can make it embarrassing to be a man.
Yeah, this topic's got to be a bit of a mess.